Welcome back to Comic Book Nation, the only show that does it all for geek culture and the official podcast of comicbook.com. I'm your host, Kofi Outlaw, and with me today are my co-hosts, Matthew Aguilar and Janelle Wheeler.
Hello.
What's up? Internet spotty, spirit tired, so we are going to get right into it today. We're going to be talking about some breaking news about the Star Wars franchise that we just got. We are also going to be talking about the penultimate episode of Penguin, a game changer. We will be talking about the final installment of DC's new Absolute universe with Absolute Superman. Well, the final installment of the first wave, let's be clear. There's more coming. But of the first wave, we will be talking about DC's Absolute Superman. And we will be doing some absolute rankings. So we will be kind of doing some fun little rankings and debates about what these three absolute titles, Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman, have been about, and kind of where we stand on those. And we're going to review the new movie Heretic, and Matt has Matt's agenda. So we got a lot to get to, and who knows when my internet may drop because I'm having internet issues. So let's start up front with my review of Heretic. Heretic is a new horror thriller from A24 starring Hugh Grant, Chloe East, and Sophie Thatcher from Yellow Jackets fame. And, this is a movie that might surprise some people. I mean, from the trailer that it's religious themed, but it kind of is vague about like what the threat is. Hugh Grant's playing this kind of creepy dude who's taking these two Mormon missionaries into a house where they don't belong. And I have to say that I was pleasantly surprised by what Heretic is able to do. This is very much a religious debate dressed up as a horror thriller movie, but what works about it is kind of there's so much more going on in the kind of the subtext of the film. Obviously, just the setup, the premise of these two, younger women getting lured into this house with this older man, and how those scenes play out. Like the three members of the cast do a fantastic job of really kind of carrying that subtext of gender dynamics, power dynamics, kind of what women feel like in places and situations where, they're trying to keep up the mask of politeness and stuff when they feel, anxious or threatened, and, all of that's going on, especially in the first half of this film, is not over your head or heavy-handed, but very wonderfully played out by just three actors doing a very good job. Hugh Grant really kind of course, you need somebody like Hugh Grant who like a total ass, but charming at the same time. And
I love him.
And he walks the line with this guy where every time you can start, and it's such a good progression of, where he's still kind of trying to be charming but pushing and pushing and pushing, and then it's slightly begins to get more and more aggressive and more condescending and more kind of unhinged, and just wonderful progression of a movie. And Sophie Thatcher, we know, is really good from the film she's done and playing a young Juliette Lewis in Yellow Jackets. But I think more people will be surprised, Chloe East, who does a lot of heavy lifting in this movie, as the more kind of nice and naive and one of the two, is a really kind of a good breakout performance for her. She's been in other stuff, but really good performance. And it's just three actors, a simple premise, and kind of walking the line of a lot of mystery and questions about what's going on here, like what this guy's end goal is, are there supernatural forces afoot? Like all this stuff is really well played out in this movie. So it's just a good movie to go if you're a horror fan, or if you're just like a cinema fan, you know what I mean? And you just like, almost stage play style movies, because there's a lot of this that is just three people in, rooms having conversations, but well done, well played out, and, very interesting for the moment. to see, this movie and kind of what it's doing on a subtextual level. So good job by Scott Beck and Brian Woods, the directors who made this. They were the people who helped write the first A Quiet Place with John Krasinski, and they do a good job here. Again, they are just good at writing these kind of dynamics and subtext and stuff under this horror stuff. So yeah, Hugh Grant's back, baby. If you're a Hugh Grant fan and you're tired of watching Dungeons and Dragons, or you can hop on this. So.
Or Wonka. That dude is crazy.
Yeah, Wonka.
He can flip to so many forms,
Oh yeah, but still always Hugh Grant, which is so such a great talent. Yeah, and just this is good. I mean, this is by far one of my favorite Hugh Grant performances of all time. And and I mean, it is just like I said, it's just kind of a masterclass of like progression, subtext, kind of little things he does, mannerisms that will make you either disarmed or uncomfortable, or his ability to make you uncomfortable, then immediately pull it back and kind of disarm you and be funny again. And you're just like, that's what carries a lot of this is literally just watching this guy and seeing how crazy is this guy, and what's going on here. So surprisingly good. Horror is still killing it, man. Like still killing it this year. So a lot of surprises, stuff that I saw. I was like, and as people have said, that's not the only thing in theaters this weekend. There's another film kind of building up a lot of steam called Anora that's also coming out in limited release. So if you're more on the edgelord indie side, you can go see that. It's a romantic comedy drama, and it's also kind of kicking up some steam too. So things to see in theaters this weekend if you are so inclined for some escapism. All right. Let's go on to the small screen where we can all have fun. And I'm sorry, I got out of order. We're going to be talking about some news first. And I can't believe it. But Janelle,
I said the same thing. I said, and Matt is so sweet. Matt's like, well, I'm doing a lot of talking and Kobe's doing a lot of talking, so we're going to give you Star Wars, which is hilarious to me because I don't know.
I did add that it was a tee up.
It's a tee up. It's a tee up for Kofi. So
I did
don't you worry. We got to let you cook on this, Kofi. Star Wars, there is breaking news. There is a new movie trilogy reportedly in development with a surprising writer-producer. And I actually confirmed this. I was like, am I saying this right? Oh, yeah, it's an easy name. It's Simon Kinberg has reportedly closed a deal to write a new trilogy of films and produce them with Lucasfilm, which is pretty cool. I mean, I'm interested to see where we're going with the films. I've been really enjoying a lot of Star Wars content on Disney Plus and in that format. So I'm actually kind of excited about this. I want to know more. He is a X-Men movie writer producer. So this is a strong choice, I suppose.
All in the games comment broke me. Sorry.
But Kofi, I'm gonna let you cook on this because I am curious about all of these little details, and obviously, like the big thing is Skywalker, like how it's tying into Skywalker, why, timeline.
We got to start with if.
Yeah, all those things.
Yeah, first of all, I just saw Simon Kinberg in line at Comic-Con with a certain other famous podcaster. You know who you are, explainer. We were all sitting there, and I know that you all were talking about something because there was hints that he was cooking on something big, and it was very like whispered around. And I straight up told, I was like, "What up, Kinberg?" And got nothing from him. So Simon Kinberg, I mean, I know we're not friends like that, bro, but that's all right. I wrote up an article, and I also wrote one about like, kind of trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. People give Kinberg a hard time because he was, first of all, he got his big break doing X-Men: The Last Stand, which is not a great place to start. He did Brett Ratner. He wrote that film. He didn't direct it. He wrote it, though. So that already is a kind of pockmark against him in the minds of a lot of people. But then he kind of got into the X-Men franchise, but he had a lot of splits in there. Like the guy wrote and produced Days of Future Past, which is, he was involved with First Class, which was like a good turnaround for the franchise after The Last Stand. He also kind of wrote and produced X-Men Apocalypse, which is not necessarily bad, but like that was maybe more of a Brett Ratner fail if you want, or not Brett Ratner, Bryan Singer fail if you really want to get into it. Like the direction and kind of stuff like that. I don't know how you feel about that. He also directed, wrote, and produced Dark Phoenix, his first directorial feature. He was involved in Fan4tastic. So it's been kind of a split, right? And so, but outside of X-Men, like, dude has also done a bunch of other stuff. He's also done a variety of genre material that people love. He was involved with making Jumper, that Hayden Christensen movie that
I really liked that film.
Exactly. So like, there's a lot of stuff that people don't think that he's been involved with, that like dude has been involved with, that he may be like cooking with. I'm trying to pull up my own article here, but I went to the wrong thing. I forgot what genre I was even talking about. Because I did like a whole deep dive into this. So, he produced the Deadpool movies and helped get those off the ground. That was another thing he was involved with.
And relevant.
He did Mr. and Mrs. Smith original movie, Jumper, Downey Sherlock Holmes, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. He worked with Neil Blomkamp on Elysium and Chappie, did Disney Cinderella. Wow. He was involved with producing the new Hercule Poirot movies. He's been involved.
This is strong.
Yeah, he's been involved behind the scenes for making a lot of the stuff that you guys don't know probably that he was involved with.
Yeah.
He's also in the Star Wars franchise. He's one of the co-creators of Star Wars Rebels. I'm beginning to freeze now, so just bear with me here. And he was also an uncredited creative consultant for Rogue One and The Force Awakens. So like in Star Wars, his track record's pretty flawless. Like that's Rebels, Rogue One, Force Awakens. Of all the Star Wars content we've gotten in the Disney era, those are like 3 of the strongest. So, it's up and down. Like any producer, writer, creator, he's got a string. He's kind of like the new Goyer in a way, right? Like David S. Goyer of the 2010s is kind of like Simon Kinberg.
Everything.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of, and producing everything when he wasn't writing everything, and tried to direct a couple things. So Kinberg's kind of another Goyer, but in Star Wars, he's batting pretty well. So it'll be interesting to see like what this is. Now, that's my defense of Simon Kinberg. He don't pay me any money, so that's all you're going to get from me. But let's talk about what's actually happening. So this happened in stages. First, Deadline came out and said Kinberg was signed for a trilogy, and up and down, it was going to be a new Skywalker, the next part of the Skywalker saga. Then Boris Kitt from over at THR came out and said, no, you got that wrong, son. It's going to be a new trilogy, but it's a new direction. And when the original article came out, it said that Kinberg's project would be independent of the Rey New Jedi Order movie, the James Mangold First Jedi movie, and like the Taika Waititi, Ryan, all the other stuff that's not really happening that we've been kind of waiting on forever, that this was something else. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if any of that is all accurate. I think that if I had to guess, I'm betting on the Rey movie getting morphed into a new trilogy and Rey being the new Obi-Wan, where we get a movie where Rey's rebuilding the Jedi Order, but Rey gets clipped or joins the Force somewhere in the middle of this, and then we get a new set of characters. Because Star Wars loves circles, and that's what happens. That's what A New Hope is. When you begin to watch everything from the prequels to A New Hope, that's what it is, right?
Oh, we got a sigh from Matt.
I will put down fair amount of money that we are not getting a Rey movie and this new trilogy, that this new trilogy will start with the Rey movie Rey is the Obi-Wan, and then we just begin a new generation of Star Wars all over again.
I mean, I trust your expertise, honestly.
And it won't be maybe Skywalker, but
I was going to say,
be...
because that's the big thing, right? Because isn't that technically then Skywalker saga? And then they come out and say, well, it's not.
Well, but then Skywalker is now a name. It's not a bloodline anymore, right? Like, so, because Rey's...
How do you think people will react when they drop that nugget and they go like, see, it's not? I don't know about the...
I don't know about anything. So, yeah, but that's like... otherwise, we're starting to get into Star Wars doing real creative stuff. But we know Bob Iger doesn't want to do that. Like, they want short things, blockbuster things. We know what the mandate is. So I just think that instead of doing some deeply artistic Rey movie, they're going to start a new trilogy with Rey Skywalker, Obi-Wan and Daisy Ridley out of this whole thing, because I'm sure she's deeply sick of it. And then kind of, yeah. Then you get her and, what's his name, Adam Driver. They can come back as a cool Force Ghost duo, you know? They could be all shipped up as ghosts, and see, now you're back in. Now you're back in.
So I'm conflicted because, like, I was really I'm looking forward to the Rey project, right? Like that actually made me like excited. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I'm excited for that. So I didn't want to lose that. So when this new trilogy thing comes out and you start seeing, reports of like, oh, that one's like, here's the thing, and the comments aren't wrong. We have been burned by, hey, this is coming from Star Wars, I don't know how many times in the last 10 years, right? Of like, hey, there's a new trilogy happening. Hey, there's these other things happening. And then they just vanish or we don't hear about them. So I totally get the cynicism there. And I'm not going to lie, there's a part of that with me too, especially when it's in the early stages and we don't have anyone else attached and all that, right? So I get that. But I want that Rey project to live because I want to see her back on the screen. So if that's the way we get there, I do think it is very fudging of the, hey, it's no Skywalker saga. I mean, that's Skywalker saga. That's getting into semantics there, but cool. If that's how I get it, that's how we get it. So I'm conflicted. I'm hopeful though. I would be optimistic because
you have a new hope. Yeah. Producer Rich is in the comments saying Producer Rich is in the comments saying if there's no Jedi Finn, he doesn't want it. Well, you're going to get Finn, but Finn's going to be Lando with Force powers. You're going to get older Finn, who's now Lando with Force powers, basically. So he's just cheating at cards using the Force, right? Like that's who we're going to get as Finn. Like it's just going to be Star Wars again. So there you go.
Man.
Yeah.
Man.
Yep. Or maybe he's the Yoda. That'd be cool. What if Finn's the Yoda in the second movie? They got to go to the Hagaba system and go see the new Yoda.
Oh gosh.
Oh man, yeah.
You know what though? I agree with
the truth.
Bribewood though. I am ready for those. I am ready for Star Wars movies again.
Yeah, I am too. But I think that the truth is, for all the repetition we talk about, we never did get a full repeat of the original trilogy. Like the sequels, the prequels were something different, and the sequels went way left and right at the last two. So we kind of just moved in. But I think they're going to try to play the classics. So just
at least it's with Rey.
Hey guys, it's not creative stagnation. It's not creative stagnation. It's the will of the Force, It's the will of the Force.
Cautiously optimistic, perhaps? Is that what we're doing?
That describes me. I'm cautiously
optimistic. I am too, but I have some demands. Quite frankly. Yeah, I'm with, and I think we have an article in the works about this. No more of this CGI face swapping. Don't try to bring back these dead actors anymore. Just if you need to do a flashback to Luke, just get Sebastian Stan, throw a wig on him, a bowl cut wig, and let's just that's just as much fun for fans.
Totally,
that is just as much fun for fans as trying to CGI us some Luke. Okay.
Yes.
Just give us a fun actor cameo. We love it when Marvel does it. Matt Damon as Loki. Yay. So, yeah, just get
to
Sebastian
rewatch
Stan in
Loki. Dude, that's such a good show.
And so,
really
Yeah. So that's my one request, and I don't know. Try to do something dope. I guess I'll believe it when I see it.
That's what I'm gonna hope for. Just try and do something dope. There you go. That should be the tagline. That should be the mantra for Star
Star Wars. Some new dope. I don't know if that goes down well. Actually, I think that might be misinterpreted. I don't know if that's gonna pass. All right, but all right. Let's move on. I think we're gonna be keeping up to date on that and cautiously optimistic. We probably won't hear anything for another 2 years. Yeah, and then we'll hear some 4 more movies are coming and this one's canceled. So you know how it goes.
I love how you went from cautiously optimistic to that is incredibly cynical. Well,
that's the caution in my optimism. That is the caution. That's what you just heard. All right, let's move on. Oh, Janelle, I told you last week that I was so sorry.
So bad.
After we discussed the Agatha finale, and I was like, I'm so sorry. And you're like, oh, this week's Penguin, I was good. And I was like, yeah, wait till you get to the next one. And then I was just like, oh, man, I'm so sorry we did that to you. So, yeah, Janelle's a new mom to a lovely little boy. And so last week we decided to put her through the ringer of all her worst fears as a parent. We were just like, drink this nightmare fuel and let's talk about it. All right. So how you feeling?
I'm okay. I think that other factors that are happening in the world, including the fact that the time change have really messed with me. So just a perfect storm of not feeling my best this week, but thank you for checking in on me.
Yeah, this one's heavy, right? So I've been excited to talk about this for a long time.
Well, first of all, can we talk about this child actor pling young Oz?
Oh my God,
he was brilliant.
Yeah, I think his name is Ryder Allen, I think, if I remember correctly.
Unreal. He's so good.
All the flashback cast is really good. Emily Mead, who's a fantastic actress from a lot of things, is really good. She's an HBO. She's like one of HBO's go-tos. His name is Ryder Allen. Yes, I got that right.
You know what's so curious about this to me is I didn't feel any remorse from him at all. Even as a kid, I did not feel any remorse.
This is what we want to get into because this has been the big kind of wonderfully ambiguous part of this that people have been endlessly debating. And obviously it's nearly a week later, so we're talking spoilers. So did Oz knowingly let his brothers die is kind of the question. And there's 2 ways to read it. Either he was just unconcerned because he was just happy with having his mother's interrupted attention and affection and all that, or he knew and calculated and wanted to have that permanently and didn't want, and that this is kind of a core part of his character, this ambition to take out competition, get the prize, get bigger status, climb through all that climb is something that's been in him forever. So there's 2 ways to kind of read that he was just either blinded by his own kind of his own selfishness, and that is something that haunts him, or this is that dark monster of ambition inside him, and that's who he is. And so I think that's what was interesting to me about this episode.
Yeah.
It's a penultimate episode. There's only one more. There's a finale after this. And while I have my own takeaway for sure, I think it's wonderful that a lot of people, it makes you re-question everything about this character that you've been with. Because as I said, me and Matt have seen this, and I'm not spoiling a single thing, but when you rewatch this show after that episode specifically, it changes so much of what you see in the performance from Colin Farrell and what happens, and just seeing this character and just seeing him talk about family and all that stuff, which is a really crazy thing to do. That blew my mind when I first saw this episode, that you get to near the end of the show and you this is a rug pull for people. And to be wow, this guy is much more screwed up than I thought. And it was wonderful because people in the middle of the show, you begin to be like, what's up with his, why is his mom in the show? Like, what's that all about? And where's that going? And it really surprises you, I think, in this episode that they unveil like, oh, here's a thing you don't know, that there's been a ticking time bomb here, like emotionally, if not just the gangland stuff, like emotionally, there's a ticking time bomb here because there's so much screwed up Oedipal stuff, kind of this family tragedy stuff. Like it's really more screwed up than the noble. Oz has this North Star as his mom that he does stuff for, kind of thing. So yeah, I thought it was a great episode. Matt, what'd you think, buddy?
Oh man, like what's with the flashback episodes just breaking me this the last last month, man. This was but like in completely different ways. Like, we talked about Agatha and like going back, and that was heartbreaking on a from like a parental level, right? And this one was so because I agree with all in the game that yes, it is obvious that like his ability to whatever he wants, whatever Oz wants comes first, right? And anything else is collateral damage. And like we've seen that throughout the show. But like this episode just really hits it home because it comes down to that mother-son dynamic, right? And you think throughout the entire show that like, okay, he's awful. He's awful to everyone else, and like he's always manipulating people, and like, but when it comes to like his mother, there's like there's this different thing, right? Like he's a little different with his mom, and that is true, but it's the why that's true that this episode really contextualizes, right? It's not even really down to like he just loves her in this. It's just like you're going to give me the attention. Like it still comes down to him and how selfish he is, even as a kid. And so this really just brings that home and then changes how you look at their dynamic, which again has kind of been this island throughout the rest of the show of this is the one time Oz is kind of good. this is the one time he's okay. But no, it's not that. And so it's just I love what this show does. But yeah, that is still, even still, like knowing all of that still doesn't really prepare you for like how that plays out. They did such a great job of like just that whole sequence. Just man, it breaks your heart, the way they do that. And then just also too to compare that moment to like what we get elsewhere with this like climactic showdown and like how that resolves is hilarious to me. Like how different
one of
they
the
are.
Funniest things, like how that's why this show is so good to me. Like there are times it gets very comic booky and where we're hauling in mushroom drugs from Arkham and stuff, but there's times when it gets like just so dramatically dark and disturbing, like that sequence with him. And by the way, I didn't have any debate because the key to me that whole sequence was when he gets his mom a whiskey and soda and he goes, I got your favorite, Ma, whiskey and soda. And he's just like giving it like you're plying her with liquor. Like that's the key detail that was like, oh, to me, like this is manipulation. This is who Penguin is. He tells you what you want to hear. He gives you what you think you want. And he makes it all nice while he's doing something awful and it's terrible. So that was what I took away from that. I didn't have any debate about where that was going. But I guess people want to believe in him, but believe in a little kid isn't that bad. But yeah, that was nuts. But yeah, but then it could get so funny even in the darkest moments. Like that moment with Sal Maroni is one of the things I remember the first time I saw that just busting out laughing, just being like, oh my God, like his reaction, Colin Farrell is just so good in this show when he's just like, what the F? He's like, Sal, get up. You're supposed to be a big man. You piece of garbage.
He's so upset at his victory. And then he still adds the thing. I got you. Like you're
talking to a dead guy. But it's such a good callback. Yeah, but that's such a good callback because that's like what he's yelling at Batman in that car chase scene when he thinks he's blown him up, and he's just like, "I got you. Like, but that's his but that's what I love is that's his pathos. Like, whenever he thinks he's taken down somebody that is supposed to be bigger than him, more powerful than him, all these things, because that's his whole thing. Deep inside, that's not how he feels. He feels like he's better, smarter, more ruthless than these people, but he spends his life pretending to be smaller than them, oh, I'm just Penguin, all that. But when that comes out, it's freaky, but it was also hilarious in this context because he didn't get what he wanted, right? Like, and like you said, I think Matt has said throughout the show that they do a good job of showing you that Oz literally, like, he's not a mastermind. He like bumbles his way through everything and kind of like turns it to his advantage. And that's like his real skills, just taking this mess and spinning it to his advantage. And that's exactly what he does. He puts a bunch of bullets in Sal Maroni, then hauls him out like he killed him.
Brilliant.
And kind of reestablishes dominance
across, but he did nothing. Oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. Did nothing. And it's just hilarious. The dude just drops dead. Which is funny because people were just like, dude, this dude took a stabbing and ran out of jail. He's like old as hell. Like, how is he still like moving around? And then he just drops dead of a heart attack. So well played, Penguin. Yeah. These episodes are nuts.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. I love the show so much.
We finally got Rex Calabrese. And that was another thing. Like, when you see in this episode who like Rex Calabrese is and like what he is and how he imprinted on Oz, but like this is the guy that like started this whole thing off with him because telling that story is what made him kill. And then you finally see this guy and who he really was compared to who you hear Oz describe him as in his head. It's just like, no, he was just a POS gangster, like beating people up in the streets. And, there's just so much good subtext that this show does that it doesn't spell out for you. But you like the whole thing in the beginning, like his mom is obviously running numbers and keeping books for the mob and like was always like involved in crime, but they don't ever come out and tell you that. They don't like say that. But when you pay attention to the details, you're like, oh, like, yeah, Rex Calabrese was just like a guy who used her for bookkeeping. He didn't pay her anything. Like he was just a POS, and it's great. Well done. Yeah. Oh yeah. And the actor for Rex Calabrese is so good at playing scumbags. He was just in that Killers of the Flower Moon. He was the one who's like, if you ever see the scene with him when they eventually get him to testify about how many Indian women he just strangled and killed, and he's just matter of fact about it, and he's just like, oh yeah, I took out there, shot her in the head, and you're like, oh my God, that guy's a sociopath. So that actor is really good at playing those characters, and his name is Louis Cancel Me. Yeah.
Cancel Me.
Yeah, it really is. Louis Cancel Me. I thought that was like hilarious.
That's great.
And he's in Boardwalk Empire, Blue Bloods. He plays gangster characters like a lot because he's so good at playing a sociopath, which is a little scary, but we'll see. I mean, not hanging out with him, but great actor. So we'll be back next week to talk about the finale of Penguin and whether the show stuck the landing for you guys or not, and what it means for the Batman universe. So stay tuned for all of that. We are going to take a break, but when we come back, we have got to talk about Absolute Superman, rank the Absolute universe, and then we're going to let Matt go wild. So stay tuned for all of that. our absolute universe coverage of the first core, oh my God, Trinity of the DC Absolute Trinity concludes with Absolute Superman. Matt, take it away. I know you've been sitting on this one a long time. You've been waiting to talk about it. So go off, King. Not muted.
I am muted. There you go. My bad. I was trying to be super cautious to not like let my typing get in the way there. So yeah, I've been very excited because number one, DC Absolute, we've talked. You should check out previous episodes where we talk about Absolute Batman and Absolute Wonder Woman. We'll be touching on those here in a minute as well. But Absolute Superman from Jason Aaron and Rafa Sandoval just does a lot of the same things that those other two books did in trying to reimagine things without kind of changing the core tenets of the character, but changing as much around them as possible. And I feel like this one especially, Absolute Batman kind of, keeps, I feel like the other two keep more of those central tenets in this one, because this one changes so much from Krypton and the way that maybe the best way to describe this is actually how far back the changes go, because this one really changes like fundamental aspects of Superman, right? How Krypton the whole class system, there's so much that's done with just Krypton in this issue, and then you finally kind of move to Kal-El and Earth, and there's also a lot done there as well, just from a character standpoint. But so much is done early on, even just from Krypton in this, that I just think like the far-reaching aspects of this book, it's ambitious what they're really doing here and how much they're changing about that. Once we get to the present, I feel like some other things start to line up more, like people are out of place, but those familiar things are still there, like what happened with the Kents, what happened, what's Brainiac doing over here. Like there's things that call back familiar things when we get to the present, but just in how the character is established. And also to one of the core points we always talked about with Ultimate Spider-Man, which has done this incredibly well, is how just changing one thing regarding age makes a huge difference, right? And we talk about like Peter being older when he gets his powers, having a family, all of that stuff changes a lot about him as who he is as Spider-Man. And to me, Absolute Superman makes one of those changes pretty prevalent right towards the end, where Cal wasn't sent off as a baby. He's older and he has a relationship with his parents on Krypton and all of that stuff. So that all kind of changes how he's going to function and think about Krypton as parents moving forward. So I just think like a lot of the things they do in this book are really ambitious and will play out over the long haul. As a first issue, I think it does a lot well. And I'm like, I love, like, it's gorgeous too, but I'm just curious about what you guys think about kind of like the long game for this one, as opposed to some of the other ones.
Muted.
You muted, Kofi.
I don't know why this keeps happening. No, it just keeps happening. I don't know why. I didn't mute again. That's kind of weird. I think it does a really good, a bold job. I mean, again, timing wise, but it's changing the nature of what an immigration story is, an alien immigration story. Back in the day, like, the most we kind of thought about mixed families was like, oh, this family, white family, like adopts an obvious child from other culture, country, color, race, whatever. And, nobody asks questions, and we live in a town, and that's a thing in America, but you didn't really talk about it. Right. But it was like, we adopt this child, then we'd raise this child as an American. And that's how we thought about things. Now, obviously, we live in a much more complicated world where, like, we are more consciously concerned about when people come, do they retain parts of their culture identity? What is that balance like? We ask a lot of these more fundamental questions. And if you are adopting like that, these are things that, modern parents of adoption, have to struggle and deal with, right? And so it is a kind of bold move to change Superman from this blank slate that just gets imprinted with these Kansas American values to an alien coming from a culture where his parents, and this was the thing that was fascinating about the book for me, was how much investment we did in who Jor-El and Lara are in terms of their socio-political beliefs. Like because that was always there. That's not them imprinting or, getting political on their own. Like Jor-El was a political rebel on the planet. That's why he sends his son away, because he's the one who says this is wrong when everybody else is like, you're crazy. And he's all right, you're not going to listen. I got to get my kid out of here because this is all about to fall apart, which again takes on very different meanings in modern times. So really instilling, Superman has to learn that about his father secondhand through robots and all that stuff and those holograms and all of that later on. But it's interesting to bring him to Earth, like Matt said, as a little kid who had those values in his head already from his parents, love of his home, love of his parents, love of his native place, and then has to come to this other place. And what his point of view is then is fundamentally changed. And that's interesting to see. Now, this is a first issue, and so we're just getting the broad brushstrokes, but I'm going to be very interested to see what Jason Aaron and them kind of get into when you get into the deeper complications of being on Earth. Who do you help? Like, what does that mean? How does that affect things when you begin to start doing that? Like, they taking a big swing here. And also, this is a dark side universe, so you have some pretty big comic booky things to deal with as well. So I'm kind of like sitting here with my popcorn, but like Ultimate Spider-Man, I'm now an adult. And so I, as a Superman fan, am more engaged and challenged to see what this is about and how Superman fits into this. And it's interesting to me. So I'm sitting here with my popcorn.
That was beautifully said. You kind of like summed up everything. For me, like what hits hard is the like environmental stuff, like how they're like completely destroying their planet. Like that was kind of, I'm very passionate about those things. Like I care about the earth so much and our oceans and things like that. And like I feel like we're just destroying our earth for future generations. And so like watching that kind of be like just presented, like, look, like everything is going to fall apart. Like it's cracking from within. I was just like, too relatable. Like this is tough to watch or to read, I guess. But that's why I really enjoyed it. And I mean, obviously everything that Kofi said as well. I mean, he's just that you summed it up beautifully. They did a heck of a job on this one. And like just the bleeding heart, like even though this is dark and like it feels more adult and all that stuff, he's still Superman. Like he still has this like bleeding heart. He wants to protect innocence and those that need protection, and that's what you love about Superman. So yeah.
And let's get into the comic booky stuff. He has like a cool AI suit, and that whole thing is like kind of crazy with powers. Like,
okay,
yeah,
Iron Man.
Yeah, like I mean, it's not all serious. It's not all like super serious. There's some pretty cool stuff going on. I really dug the AI suit. I really dug the thing where it's like recharging him when when he needs it, like a car, like your iPhone or something.
That's so great.
Like the sci-fi of Krypton is Jason Aaron's great at that kind of stuff, like taking mythology and getting really mythy with it, but like creating this whole like the technological aspects, because he is older and like when he comes and things he would have as a young kid versus a baby, like it's really interesting to see that. I really dug that, and his powers and what they've done with his powers and learning to control them. And not being able to control them is an interesting twist. So, I mean, I really dug it. Like,
even the layers to his suit. And we'll actually have something that really dives into all that up on Comic Book soon. But One of the cool things, right? When I had the chance to talk to Jason about the book was like, it's even all the small details, like his cape, right? Like his cape is literally made of the ash of Krypton, right? And it can also form. Like it also takes like different forms. His suit can adapt. It is like there's so many levels to, we haven't even gotten into like, no one knows what the gauntlets do, right? There's so many little details that like I think over time, when I think about this book, and also even the stuff about you were mentioning about Krypton, the class system and how like the S is reinterpreted in this, it's always been about hope. It's always been this thing or whatever, but now how it's tied into steel and how they're actually like, I thought all that was just so well done. I think over time, Absolute Superman could be the one that kind of runs away with it on the long, like looking forward at the long game. Like once like a whole 12 issues is in, I will be immensely curious to see how that reads. And it might be the strongest of the three just from how rich all that other stuff is. And it's just going to take a while to see all of it.
Wait, now I'm curious about y'all's rankings.
Man, I'm not going to lie. Kofi had me like doubting mine a bit. I was like, oh man, did I pick the right one?
Let's do it.
But yeah, let's get into that. Actually, that's a perfect segue.
Yeah, that's perfect segue. All right, perfect segue.
Who's first?
Janelle.
Oh, I am? Oh my gosh.
Yes,
okay. I'm excited.
Yes, right. Absolutely. Ladies first. Let's go.
So, if you guys don't know, we're ranking the Absolute books out of the three. And do I start with my first or my last? I think we just throw them all up there.
Go up.
Yeah.
Okay. So my third is actually Batman. Surprise, surprise. Well, it's me, you guys. I'm burned out on Batman. You know this story of my life. I can't even really remember the storyline. Like I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, that thing happened, and so it just wasn't really as engaging to me as the other two. My number two is Wonder Woman because it was so awesome that we went over. I was like, hey, is this the one with the sand baby? I loved all of my Wonder Woman that I've been reading recently. So I thought this was a Sand Baby one. No, it's the magic one. It's the one in hell and magic and all those things that, obviously speak to my soul. I love magic. And, it's so weird because I don't like horror on the big screen, but I like any kind of horror in a comic. That's so weird. Like, what is wrong with
it's a mitch.
I just had this moment where I thought of this and I'm like, oh gosh.
I mean, you're not that weird. I know a lot of people who love like horror novels but don't like to see horror movies and stuff like that. It's just format plays a big part in it.
Also, like, I don't like super horror. I guess I don't like the super, super, super bloody, gross stuff. But and then number one for me is Superman. I was really taken by this book and all of the themes and everything it stood for. I just feel like it touched on a lot of really relevant things, and I just really enjoyed it. And I cannot wait to see where it goes. And that's why I was very excited you said that, Matt, that this might be the one that rises to the top.
And so your number one. It really surprised me.
Really?
And now, but after this discussion, I'm not surprised. So like that's
cool.
It's very good. All right, Kofi, you're up, man.
Oh, you want me to go next? Yes. Okay. Yeah. So my number 3 pick was Wonder Woman. Not because any of these are bad, mind you. This is all a ranking of things I enjoyed. We are ranking the things I enjoyed. I thought Wonder Woman was very good, but just not enough for a first issue. I thought it was just too kind of sparse. The storytelling choice was good, and I think in a trade it's going to be awesome. But like for a first issue, I felt I was left a little wanting, and that's kind of how my rankings shaped up overall because there was nothing that was like a fail to me. So I just had to do it by who I thought had the best first single issue, like all across the board. Number 2 was Superman. Because I thought that, like I said, the mythology, all the stuff I'm not going to repeat that I just went on that little diatribe about, how they're doing the myth and the big swings they're taking was really good. But again, I think Batman was my number 1 because I felt like it was the most complete of a single first issue. That felt like I got the beats of the character while getting a complete kind of story. Scott Snyder did a great job of melding past and present to really make us understand the impact of what was happening in a big battle sequence that also just showcased this new Batman's kind of powers and what he can do and what's different about him and all that. So, and it was the most intriguing with the kind of character change introduction with Alfred and what he's doing and all of that and the flashback. And it really hit home with the flashback there, because all of these books are kind of dealing with modern age kind of things that are going on in putting these characters. But the Batman one really just hit home with me. Maybe because both my parents are teachers and stuff like that. And, you know, they live across the street from the Covenant School, but all that stuff really hit home for me. So, Batman was my number one. So, Matt, I'm very interested to see how this rounds out.
Okay, so I went from my picks. I went number 3, Superman, because I think, like I said, I think over time this might change, because for the first issue, like a lot of the present day stuff with Cal and Earth and all that didn't hit as hard for me as some of the other books and what they're doing in the present day. But the stuff about Krypton and how that informs him as a character and all that stuff is so great. And so I'm just like waiting for that to coalesce, and it will absolutely. And I think over time, over the course of 12 issues, this ranking might change. We'll have to go back once we get like maybe even the midway point of stuff. We should redo these. But so for right now, though, it's 3. And again, this speaks to more the strength of the others as opposed to the weakness of this. I enjoyed all 3 of these immensely. Number 2 is Absolute Batman. I loved this book. And I thought it really changed up so much of like core fundamental parts of who Bruce is. And the Batman stuff is just like amped to 10, right? He's got an axe. I mean, the dude's able to, he's a walking weapon, like all that stuff is great. But like, it still felt like, for the most part, a Batman book. And my number 1 is Wonder Woman, Absolute Wonder Woman, because I just thought it found the perfect balance of changing things that recontextualize who Diana is, especially having Cersei as her mother, and raising her. All of those scenes that showed them like just spending time together and her growing up were just so impactful. I thought they were just so well done. The action hits hard. She's on a skeleton Pegasus. She's, you know, has magic swords and all that. I thought it was just, it found the right balance of changing a bunch of things around the character, but also keeping the present plot moving. The artwork was phenomenal. I just thought like that one had the overall package for me the most out of the 3 number 1s. But again, this is like Kofi said, this is, you know, ranking the things you love. Like they were all fantastic. I just think that one nailed it. I'm curious though, once we get to the end of this kind of first year, how all that ranks, because I could see Superman overtaking some things. So that's my 3. Oh, you're muted, Kofi.
Oh yeah, and you have an agenda.
As we've learned this week and can now confirm between us, none of us can agree on anything. So there you go.
It's true.
Yeah. Everybody's list completely different.
This is why we're so good.
Job. Yeah, here we go. Everybody's list completely different across the board. Yeah, so to reiterate, my number 1 was Batman, Janelle's number 1 was Superman, Matt's number 1 was Wonder Woman. So there we go. At least everybody got a shout out. Every one of those comics got up on somebody's list. And none of this shook out the way I thought it would. So there you go. Don't know nothing.
Now Matt gets to cook.
There's so many jokes I want to make, but we just can't make them on this show. Let's just keep moving. Matt, go ahead.
All right, so I'm gonna move into real quick. I just wanted to touch on, there was some breaking news. Breaking news is, and we knew that there were deals in place to do a Mass Effect TV series, and Amazon was in talks previously. But then, because of N7 Day, the annual celebration of all things Mass Effect, there was, hey, it's officially happening. It's in development. It's underway. Amazon kind of becoming the, you know, the place where genre TV franchise of our pop culture, geek culture franchises live. Very excited, especially after what they've done with Fallout. Very excited to see what they can do with Mass Effect. And the biggest question is, you know, what are they going to do? Are they going to go, you know, our excellent article about it on Comic Book kind of talks about, like, we've had success with straight up adaptation like Last of Us, and we've also had success with Fallout and kind of setting the world and bringing that to life, but then telling an original story. Mass Effect is one of those that, like, there's few trilogies that are as beloved as Mass Effect, and the characters you meet along the way in that are, you know, have become, rather iconic. So the new game that's in development is picking up on that legacy and, you know, bringing back some characters and things like that. So for the show, are you going to set the universe? Because the world is big enough to be able to handle it. You could absolutely tell an original story and not involve Shepard and all the crew. But do you want to do that? It's going to be interesting to see. But that is in development. And what's interesting about that is that Mass Effect, the new Mass Effect game, is now kind of full speed ahead on that, because Dragon Age, the Veilguard, is now out after a long wait. And it is finally out here, and I wanted to give some early impressions on it. This is not a review because I'm still not near completion on this. So I just wanted to give some early impressions of Dragon Age, the Veilguard. But so far, it has that. It's got that BioWare magic. It's got that. I'm a huge fan of the Dragon Age franchise. I love Mass Effect as well. But out of the two, Dragon Age is my favorite. And so it's been a long wait. I love that we get to see, you know, characters that we got to know before, Harding, Varric, all those people, but the new characters and some that are even pulled in from the other books and the comics. If you're reading the Dragon Age comics, you're going to love some of these characters. The cast is phenomenal, especially so far. I don't even have my whole crew yet, right? But the crew that I have is fantastic, even though Nev is an early favorite for me. But like the actual moment-to-moment gameplay, I'm on a PS5, and I have it in fidelity mode because it is gorgeous in fidelity mode. There are some, like, I have weird like quibbles with this game of, like, it still doesn't feel natural to walk. Like, the control still feels weird, like going from like walk to sprint is like little stuff like that feels weird. And I hope there was a patch that just released, so I'm hoping that fixes those little weird quibbles. But like the actual combat, the strategy of, like, there's a big thing in this game about with combat of having one of your party members set up an ability. So they'll apply weakened or they'll apply sunder. And then you have another character, maybe even your character, detonate that, right? So you're doing combos with your whole crew. You can't control them directly, but you can give them commands. So like being able to combo that on the field, time pauses when you're in combat, when you're on that screen. So like you can really still do tactical stuff, even though it's a very full-on real-time combat system. I'm a mage, and I'm not going to lie, my elf character very much looks like Joe Moline, Green Lantern, Far Sector, for anyone. I'm gonna share that at some point. It pretty much looks like that. It's no surprise to anyone that that's what happened. But yeah, no, it's fantastic so far. The storytelling is great. It's got that, you know, perfect, like the dialogue is so rich, and the personalities, they feel alive. These characters feel like real people and fun and so different and unique when you get them paired together and you're moving along the world. I'm really enjoying my time with it so far. So early impressions of that. Is anyone else, by the way, anyone else here a big Dragon Age Mass Effect person? I wasn't sure if either of you were.
Kind of.
Nah, I dropped off of RPGs. I didn't have the time. I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima right now. Like, I'm catching up on like the last 7 years of gaming. Like, yeah. And that's the way I like it. I don't want to be plugged into what's happening right now. I tried to do that a couple times.
Zelda. I haven't had time.
I've played Zelda. I played the Zelda for the last year straight. Yeah.
Is it? Wait, the one where you play as her?
Oh no, not the new.
Yeah,
no,
the new one just popped off, and then Mario Party.
Yeah, I want to get Mario Party. I think.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm taking it back to like Nintendo right now.
No, maybe I'll surprise the kids. That sounds good. Mario Party. I'm looking at that.
Oh, I've heard it's so good, and you have online play. So you can actually
Ooh.
like straight up play with people. So we could play together.
Oh. Yeah, what's going on? Mario Party. Oh, Jamboree. I see.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. So yeah, you should jump into this though. No, I'm not wearing a suit jacket. Why am I wearing a suit jacket?
People want to know. People thought you were looking spiffy.
Oh, it does flare up right here though. Yeah, no, I'm not wearing a nice yellow. I'm rocking the yellow today. All right, going
I'm
bright.
The Labyrinth.
Oh,
shout out David Bowie.
All right. Nice. I work for a living,
He's
so I'm
repping
wearing
us.
a comic book. Yes.
repping the team, man. So I'm moving into we were talking about Star Wars earlier, moving into some Star Wars Unlimited. Hey, the game is out, the new set, Twilight of the Republic. I feel like Kofi would love this set because it's all about Clone Wars. That's the kind of the jump we're making for this set. It jumps into the 2 leaders. I'm actually reviewing, so right now the whole set just came out. I have a bunch of thoughts. Me and actually producer Peter will be jumping into a video at some point to really dissect the new Twilight of the Republic set. But right now, I just wanted to go over the starter set, which brings Ahsoka and General Grievous as your 2 main leaders. And you're able to, each one, of course, has different abilities. There's multiple leaders in this set, but these just come in that first starter set, which, as with the previous 2, the starter sets, you get 2 decks, pretty cheap comparatively. You get everything you need in there to play the game. You could actually just like have 2 people sit down, pop that out. You get all the tokens, you get like, the little mats and everything. You're good to go. So I think like they've had really strong ones. The last one was Mando and Moff Gideon. And here we get Ahsoka and we get General Grievous. And it takes advantage of several new mechanics in the game, but one of the big ones is the ability of battle tokens, which like kind of bring in the fun of you're able to call in really cheap droids, you're able to call in clone troopers, and because they cost so little and a lot of them are brought in by playing other cards, you're able to have like all of a sudden like a force of like 3 or 4 droids, 3 or 4 clone troopers, and you have a lot of cards that take advantage of that. And the more people you have on the field, the more bonuses you have amongst your other people. Like Ahsoka has an ability called Coordinate, and essentially gets a buff when there's 3 people when you control 3 units, but she counts as 1 if you bring her out, right? So you can play with that, and the more units you get on the board, you have it's kind of like almost like a little mini army game. General Grievous, on the other hand, allows you he can give Sentinel to droid units. So like you can have a super cheap one that's on the field, and Sentinel means that no one else the other team can't attack anybody else on the board but that character. So it's great because he can literally like, hey, I don't want you attacking my base. I don't want you attacking this other priceless unit over here. I'm just going to sacrifice a droid and throw him at you essentially and like make you kill that unit. And you can continually do that once every turn. So like there's a lot of tactics. There's a lot of play, even in just the starter set. The exploit keyword is also used in this, which essentially means you can sacrifice units you have in play to reduce the cost for other bigger ones that you have in your hand. So you can actually play some of those big, powerful units earlier than you typically can because they cost so much. You have to sacrifice some people to do it. But again, very fitting with General Grievous. I feel like that's a very fitting mechanic. It is my fancy yellow shirt. Oh my God, Matt Swagular. Yes, that needs to be on a shirt. Oh my God, that's amazing. All right, thank you, James. We're gonna roll with that. That is
wow.
Fantastic.
You guys have just created a monster. Oh my
I am
God,
adopting
Swagular.
that. Oh my
man.
God, amazing.
So
that is Star Wars Twilight of the Republic. You can find even more information. We also have an interview going up here pretty soon, diving in all kinds of things. So definitely take a look at that on Comic Book. And last but certainly not least here, I think this is rounding out my agenda here. Disney Lorcana is a big tabletop month here, man. Disney Lorcana is out with Azurite Sea. It's brand new set. And look, I'm excited for this. Number one, because we brought in Rescue Rangers and Big Hero 6 into the game. I'm a huge Baymax fan. Who doesn't love Chip and Dale? We bring in those characters. It brings in a pirate theme. So we have the 2 starter sets, which are the ones I'm talking about today. Those starter sets are basically kind of break things up. One is very heavy into the pirate theme. You have locations that give you bonuses for having pirate keyword characters on them. You have fun characters that are pirates in this, given kind of that pirate theme. Like Moana is in that set, right? And you have like a captain version of her and a regular version of her. You have fun characters that are kind of given that theme, right? That is one starter set. And then the other starter set focuses on kind of the science side of things. It's all about inventors, right? So like that's where like you're going to see a lot of your Big Hero 6 characters in that set. Though you also find some wonderful additions. This set, you know, in addition to like Rescue Rangers and Big Hero 6, we also get like Emperor's New Groove. Winnie the Pooh has a huge presence in this set, which just makes me happy. The Great Mouse Detective is featured. Radigan's in this set. That's amazing. Like if you're like a longtime Disney fan, I feel like you're gonna find a lot to love here. But yeah, Emperor's New Groove is also in the set. Yzma makes an appearance, right? So they do such a great job of mixing all the characters. But the two starter decks kind of differentiate themselves. You have the one that's focused on pirates, and that one's kind of more straightforward, right? You're gonna get bonuses, certain characters hit harder when they're damaged, that kind of thing. So I feel like that set's a little bit easier to learn, and that's the Amber and Ruby deck. But then the Emerald and Sapphire deck, which is the inventor side, that one like takes a little more time to like play a couple rounds with it to kind of figure out how the nuances work. So you've got like assistant characters that give buffs to other characters when they do things on the board. So you kind of have to play with all of your, you have to really kind of dig into some of the abilities. The team leader Hamada card, that one actually has a lot of cards have like multiple abilities on them, right? So they'll like come in and they'll give a buff to like your entire team sometimes, but then they'll have an extra ability that will let you kind of do even more tactical things and work with the cards you have. So there's a lot more, like, to me, the depth of the inventor side of the Emerald and Sapphire deck is higher, but the approachability of the Amber and Ruby deck with the pirate theme is kind of more approachable. I feel like that would be the one to hand to someone who maybe isn't as familiar or just maybe not as experienced with the game. But both are really fun to play. They have a bunch of gorgeous cards, as you can see here. I love the artwork in Lorcana. So I couldn't rave about both of these more. If you're a Star Wars fan or a Disney fan right now, and you love TCGs and you love card games, like you're eating very well right now. So both of those are, you know, out this month, and you can get to playing right now. So yeah, that is my agenda for this week.
All right, thanks, buddy. Sorry, I was watching about this Mario Party Jamboree. It was
Matt Swagular.
Oh boy,
God.
That'll do it for this episode of Comic Book Nation. We are going to get out of here. We will be back next week to talk about the final episode of Penguin, I think, is next week. Oh my God, is next week Red One?
Yeah, it's happening.
We'll be here to talk about
Dune's coming soon.
Yeah, Dune's coming in the next couple of weeks. Silo's coming back.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to be busy. We're going to be busy throughout the holiday season. There's going to be not necessarily comic book or superhero related content, but a lot of sci-fi content. Yeah, a bunch of big movies, Wicked, Moana 2, Red 1. There's going to be a lot to talk about. And, you know, big things happening in comics, and coming to the end of the year, we're going to have to do a lot of reflection on 2024. So going to be a lot to talk about in the coming weeks of Comic Book Nation. It's been a year. It's been crazy, but we are glad to be here and glad to offer some escapism talk when you guys might need it. So I'm Kofi Outlaw. These are my co-hosts, Janelle Wheeler and Matthew Aguilar, and we are Comic Book Nation. Peace.
This is